standing in front of?
A big old oak tree.
Yeah. So we'll have a look. Look at all that oak tree and branches.
Now we're gonna collect all the bark and oak tree. Mommy can show them.
Yeah.
And
So what happened?
branches.
Did it rain the last couple days?
Yeah.
And
Saturday and Sunday it rained all day.
all kinds of stuff.
I like your braid.
Thank
My mom has a braid today.
There's lots of fallen branches, and so we're gonna see what we can collect. And then what are we gonna do?
We're gonna dye
What are we gonna do? Come here. Wait, come here. What are we gonna do with it?
it. We're gonna dye it.
We're gonna dye the bark? Or are we gonna use the bark to dye?
Dye on.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna get collecting. So another thing that is great to dye with from the oak tree are the leaves, and spring/summer leaves will give you a different color, I hear, than fall leaves. So, wow, look at all those leaves you just found. We've got all of these big clumps of leaves that have also fallen off of the tree. So I've decided to gather these as well, and I think we'll do both a bark dye and oak leaves dye. Owen is being quite the excellent helper today. All these big piles of leaves he's getting. So now we've got more oak trees in the front yard here. Okay, are you gonna show us what you have?
Hi boys and girls, we're back.
Okay, what is that?
An oak gall.
Yeah, it's like winning the lottery that we found one, right? It's so cool.
Mommy,
Yeah.
actually in Ella's yard over there,
Yeah, did we
You
find it in a neighbor's
Yeah,
yard?
we
Right
found it
across
in
the
bed.
fence, but it probably fell from our tree because it
Yeah,
hangs over their
because
fence.
it leans over.
Yeah, can you hold it up close to the camera? It's really cool. Can you show us the hole? Yeah. So wasps come out of there. I'm gonna have to do some more research, but so cool, right? He's been holding this thing for about an hour and won't let it go. He is obsessed with finding more. We haven't found any more yet.
That is where, do you see that little hairy thing? That's where wasps come from.
You think so? I gotta research
My dad
that.
said that wasps hatch from that little furry
Okay.
thing.
All right.
So wasps,
You want to go look for a few more? Or
What?
should we go show everybody our haul
what hole?
of branches and leaves and everything?
Yeah. Flowers.
Yes, we don't need those flowers for anything now.
We just collected flowers.
Random flowers, and then a really big pile of leaves. We haven't even gotten everything off the grass.
The next door neighbor Ella gave us all of these.
Well, not all
Some
of
of
them.
it, some of it.
We collected plenty from our yard.
Here
And then, so
are
we've got.
bugs, and here are bugs and big fat branches.
Yeah, and there's a lot of green stuff, so I'm wondering if the green stuff is lichen. If it is, then that's something that we can use to dye yarn
Mommy.
too. Hold on.
And these are the thin branches over there too.
Mhm.
Some thin branches
Yes.
are kind of
Yeah,
going
we've
out
got
there.
lots of branches. And then what's in that bag over there? Lots more branches.
Yeah, lots more branches.
So let's open the bag because we've got a whole bunch more branches and pieces of bark. We have so much to work with.
Even this.
Yeah,
Don't forget about the oak gall, egg gall.
you're having a
Don't
blast.
forget about the egg gall.
Oak gall, not
I
egg gall.
keep forgetting.
Over in this pile, check it out. This is lichen. It's so cool. Apparently this gives a beautiful purple dye. And so I've separated out all of the branches that have a decent amount of the lichen. So, you know, this is stuff that has all fallen on its own from the trees. You never want to take this stuff off of a living, growing tree. But this was all just on the ground. And so I need to figure out how to just kind of get the lichen off of these branches. So I'm going to be doing some research into that, because that's going to be its own dyeing project for sure. Kind of excited. I never thought this is something that would excite me. It's kind of weird. Look at this. There's so much potential dye material here. I should see like this one here. Look at this one. It's probably the best specimen that I have. It's so cool. Okay, so I'm sure that I've got way more than I need, but I saved 2 bags full of the leaves, and then whatever was left, Owen just helped get so many. He was such a big help today. But whatever I didn't put in these 2 bags, we put over the fence into the woods behind our house. So, and we got the yard cleaned up a bit in the process. Okay, so I decided that the first dyeing project with the oak I was going to do would be with the leaves. And so I chopped up 1 entire paper bag full of leaves and filled my dye pot with the leaves. And I'm going to fill this with water and go to bed. You can either let it sit for several days in water, or you can heat it on the stove a bit. So I think tomorrow morning I will heat it, but I thought I would let it sit for a few hours while I was sleeping first. And I've got 200-gram skeins of wool sitting in, also soaking in some room temperature water in the bathroom in a bucket. So that has been sitting overnight, so the fibers will be nice and wet to absorb whatever color we're able to extract from these leaves. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this up. Some water. And I will see you guys in the morning. I'm going to fill it up so it is about over here. Alright, so I've got my dye bath filled up, my dye pot filled up with chopped up oak leaves that are now sticking to my hand. And it's almost all the way filled up. It's a pretty big pot. You can see it. It's pretty big. So these leaves can move freely in here. And I'm just gonna let this soak. And I'm gonna go get some sleep. Alright, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay, so it is the next day. I have my oak leaves simmering, the heat is off now, so the dye bath that I just created from the oak leaves is cooling before I put the wool in, because I don't want to shock the wool, so I don't want to just put the wool directly in an already hot dye bath. So I'm letting the oak leaf dye bath cool down, and while that is cooling down, I have a jar, and I have all of these lichen covered bits that we collected from the ground after the weekend storm. So I'm going to do my best to get the lichen off of the branches and put the lichen in the jar. And after I have my jar full of lichen, I will have to get some ammonia. And what you do is you let the lichen dye bath form over a period of like at least 3 months so that the purple color can form. So this one's going to be a long process, and we'll come back and do a separate video on the lichen. But I just thought I would let you know that the leaf dye bath is cooling, and I will be working on the lichen while I'm waiting to be able to put my yarn in the other dye bath. Okay, so I have simmered my leaves in water I did that for an hour or two yesterday, and then I have let these sit for the whole rest of the day and overnight so that it would cool completely, and just to give the dye bath a little extra time to absorb color. So my next step is I need to strain out all of these leaves, which is going to be pretty time consuming because there's a lot of leaves in here. But let's have a look at what color we're getting. So that's kind of like a yellowish, bright yellow color. So yeah, well, we will see how this does. So yeah, time to strain the leaves. Right, so I have filtered out all the leaves, and this is the color that we are getting from those spring oak leaves. And so I am going to go grab the yarn, which has been soaking, and we're gonna get that in this pot. Okay, here we go. Let's see what this looks like. Alright, so that's already taking up some color. And I've got 2 skeins that I'm gonna put in. 200 gram skein. So I'm gonna get this in, get that. Oh, I think this is gonna be so pretty. Okay, let me go get the other one. Okay, and here's skein 2 going in. You can see there's still a few leaves in here, but almost all of it is strained out, and those will just wash out later, so I'm not concerned about that. All right, so as you can see, I've got plenty of room in here for these skeins to move around freely, so I do not need to worry about adding any water to it. But yeah, it's gonna be hard to tell right now what kind of color we're gonna get. I am going to actually let these soak cool for a while and before I heat them, and that is only because I have some other things that I need to do today and I can't sit by the stove just yet. So I'm going to just start the process by letting these just soak in here without any heat, and when I am ready to be able to sit by the stove and attend to this, I will do the heating. So I will check back with you guys at that point. This is the color we're getting so far from the leaves. So I have heated it, and it is now cooling a bit. It's a little hard to see the color, but I think it's gonna be really, really pretty. Okay, it is time to reveal the color straight out of the dye pot from dyeing oak leaves, spring oak leaves. Look at that. Okay, I am going to pull this out. Look at this. Oh, that's so lovely. What a nice color. Okay, let me move my camera. So I have been letting this sit. I boiled it, well, I didn't boil it, I simmered it yesterday. You don't want to boil it because the wool can felt. But I let it simmer for an hour yesterday afternoon, and then I just I turned the heat off completely and just let it cool. And once it had kind of cooled down, I took the lid off and I just let it sit for the whole rest of the night overnight. And now it is about 24 hours since I simmered it the next day. And so I just decided to let it cool completely and soak extra overnight in the dye bath. And now I am ready to rinse this out. So I still have a few leaves in here, but I'm going to try to get this, there we go, so that it's not super tangled. Here we go. And I'm gonna squeeze this gently. You do not want to wring wool ever. You just want to squeeze the water out. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull this leaf out of here. First skein. I'm going to just drape that over this bucket. Let's get the second one out. Okay. Again, I'm just going to squeeze the water out. There's a lot of leaves stuck in this one. I'm gonna have to pick those out. Alright, let's get the leaves out. I'm gonna just pick the bigger pieces out, and then the small pieces when I'm about to wash this yarn in some pH neutral detergent. That will probably let us see how much color really absorbed into the yarn once we do the rinse. The excess dye will come right out. Now you can save the dye bath. So I could save this dye bath to use again, but I don't have any other yarn that I want to use with the leaf color. And I am not a full-time dyer, I just do this very occasionally. So I am likely not going to get back to it in a week or two, which is all that you would really want to keep this for anyway. So I am going to just dispose of it, and we're gonna get on to rinsing this beautiful, beautiful yarn. This is such a gorgeous color. I'm so pleased. Okay, so now I've got my pH neutral detergent that has no scents or dye in it, fragrance and dye free. And I have this, whoops, I've got the yarn in here, and I've got it in a very cool, not cold, but definitely kind of room temperature water. And I'm just going to rinse this. I'm not going to agitate it too much, but I am going to pick it up and kind of squeeze the detergent through, like you saw me when I was rinsing the other yarn. So I'm gonna do just a lot of squeezing, gentle squeezing, and I'm going to be rinsing this just until the water runs clear. Okay. Squeeze this out one more time. The water is running completely clear. And then we're gonna hang it to dry. But look at this gorgeous color. So this is our color. And now we're just gonna let this dry. Unfortunately, it's a rainy day, so I cannot hang this up outside, but I'm just gonna leave it here. Okay, so I have cut up a whole bunch of the oak branches that we collected several days ago, and look at all that. So I have this whole bin full of chopped up oak branches, and I am going to soak these in water for several hours, and then later this evening I'm going to let them simmer for about an hour and see what kind of color we can extract, and I'll let it cool overnight. So I'm going to go dump these in my aluminum pot that is reserved for dyeing only, not for food, and I'm just going to get some water over them and let them soak. All right, so I've got my bin of oak chips and my dye pot. You want to help me?
Yeah.
There you go. Look at that. That was great help. Thank you. All right. So I didn't worry too much about separating the outer bark. What I was concerned about when I chopped it up was getting to that inner bark, because that is where most of the color is. So you just want to chop it up enough so that you can access as much of that inner bark as possible. So now I am going to cover this with water, and we're going to let it sit and do its thing. Okay, so obviously these are gonna float to the top, so I'll probably, stir it up every once in a while and until I'm ready to simmer it later. But I'm just gonna let this soak as is while I go play with Owen for the rest of the day. I'll be doing the simmering after he is in bed tonight. So I'll see you guys later. All right, I've got this in the dye pot now. It's been just sitting cool for several hours, and now I am beginning to bring it to a simmer. So I will check back with you guys, but let's see. Maybe have a little bit of color so far. Not too much going on, so simmering is going to really help it. Okay, so this has been simmering for an hour, and now I've turned the heat all the way off, and I'm just going to let this dye pot cool, and I'm going to let this just soak overnight, cool again, just because the longer the better usually. But let's see kind of what kind of color we're getting. Oh, that melted really quick. That cup just melted right on there, but look at that beautiful kind of amber color or something. So yeah, I'm kind of excited. Yeah, that just like melted that right away. It's very hot. Whoops. So, So yeah, so I'm gonna just let that cool down all the way and sit overnight. Oh my goodness, you guys, look at how dark this dye bath is. So this is the next day. I'm going to get some of this out. Look at this color. This is some amazing color. I am so excited about this one. I'm actually still gonna let this sit for the rest of the day until this evening. I have to go get some yarn soaking, and then I'm gonna need to strain all of the bark out of here. But let's see. Oh my goodness. Look at that color. This is amazing color. I'm expecting to get a brown, some kind of brown shade from this. But like it has like a reddish to it, which is really exciting. So I'm really curious about this. Oh my goodness. Okay. So I'm gonna let this sit because it is a beautiful day and I don't wanna spend it sitting watching the stove simmer. And I'm gonna be working on this evening. All right, guys, it is time to see what this looks like. My yarn has been soaking in the dye pot for quite some time, a good 24 hours at least. It simmered last night for about an hour, and then I let it cool slowly and completely. And now it is about 12 o'clock-ish the next day, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock the next day. And it's completely cooled, and I'm going to be transferring it into this bucket to give it a good thorough wash. So let's open this up and see. All right, so I mean, at first glance this is looking quite similar to the leaf color, but I'm not really gonna know until we hold them side by side just how similar or different they are. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull these out. Okay, so I filled the orange bucket with some water, and I've got 3 skeins, all soaked at the same time in the dye bath. Here's the first one. I'm gonna gently squeeze the dye as I'm taking it out of the pot. So there's no soap in here just yet. I'm just doing a quick little rinse just to see what color we have. I think that this might be a little lighter actually than the leaves, even though the dye bath itself was quite darker. I'm wondering if this is going to dry lighter. Okay, so now I'm going to be adding some pH neutral detergent, just a little bit, as I clean the yarn. And I'm going to be rinsing this. I'm going to be rinsing this until the dye bath runs clear. can see a lot of color coming out of this. Some fire. Let's go ahead. There's still quite a bit of color coming out, but it's staying in the yarn at the same time. So I'm just doing a final dunk for each of these. You can see we've got some clear water now. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and dry these outside today because it is a nice warm day, and that'll hopefully speed along the drying process. I'm gonna try not to put them in direct sunlight, but you know, kind of a shady spot. So they'll got lots of warm air to dry quickly. All right, let's take it outside. Okay, so here is what the oak bark yarn is looking like. It's still soaking wet. It is dripping. But this is what it's looking like outside. I've just got it hanging up in the shade, and hopefully it'll get a lot of drying time outdoors today since it's a nice dry day. Okay, so my yarn is just about all dry, but I wanted to show you what my oak bark yarn looked like up against some bark. So obviously it's the inner part of the bark that gave the color, not the outer side, but I had some sticks laying here and I thought it would be really cool to show you the color that I got. So I'm going to go grab the yarn that was dyed with the leaves, and we're going to hold those up next to each other and see if there is a difference and what kind of difference we've got. Wow, so check out this variety in color, all from that oak tree right there, and the other ones in the yard. So check this out. These two are the same exact base, and this is what I just dyed. So the top three are the lightest, and these were dyed with the oak bark. Interestingly enough, the dye bath was the darkest for that one. Now these two down here, so all of this base for these 5 skeins right here is a superwash wool from Maine. The 2 on the bottom, you can see there's a clear difference in color. Those were done with the oak leaves, springtime. And then all of this over here is acorns that I did 2 seasons ago, 2019. The darkest two were the first dye bath, and then I had so much dye left over that I put in 3 others. So these five are all the same base. It's a Patton's Croy sock yarn, and these 2 here are Patton's Classic Worsted. So those were actually all from the same batch of acorns, the same dye bath. The 2 darkest ones were in the dye bath alone, and then everything else was in a subsequent dip in the same bath. So that's such a variety of color, all from one oak tree on Long Island, New York. So cool.